Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and guys, we got a lot of Epstein to do today. I also want to do a Nexium update. We got some news there, and even an update on the Android apps that are spying on you through ACR and other types of software. But that's going to all be after we go over this latest allegation that I think has the most credence so far, that Epstein was indeed an intelligence agent and that Acosta was told to back off. Now, I know, Jason, we always knew it was a honeypot operation. Jason, we always knew he was a Mossad operative. I want to be very careful here because, again, we don't know anything. But what we're going to do here is present the latest evidence out there that shows that he seems to have been an asset for some time, or an agent for some time, for some intelligence, and there are ties there. Again, we go over the facts here. But the source of this one is actually pretty solid, and I have confirmed it with that source. So first of all, let's read this article. It's at a Zero Hedge, so right away I wanted to get to the source material afterwards. But let's read it for the audience, okay, guys? Let's see. To appreciate the significance of what I'm about to share, you really need to go back and read yesterday's post. The Jeffrey Epstein rabbit hole goes a lot deeper than you think. In that piece, I shared my lesser known but extremely bizarre facts about Jeffrey Epstein and the people around him. I also noted that it appeared his real job was to run a blackmail operation to ensnare some of the most wealthy and powerful people on earth. I alluded to this possibility that he was collecting this priceless information on behalf of a third party, and then just today, we learned the following via the Daily Beast. Okay? Is the Epstein case going to cause a problem for confirmation hearings? Acosta had been asked. Acosta explained breezily, apparently, that back in the day, he'd had just one meeting on the Epstein case, okay? He cut the non-prosecution deal with one of Epstein's attorneys because he had been told to back off, that Epstein was above his pay grade. I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, he told his interviewers in the Trump transition, who evidently thought that this was a sufficient answer and went ahead and hired Acosta. So let's get this all straight. All right, let's go back right now. So this information is being shared just before he's being confirmed as the labor secretary during the transition team. That's a huge, huge statement. That would mean that the Trump administration would have had to have been aware of the allegations that Epstein got off. Why? Because he was an intelligence asset of some kind. And in that regard, again, we have the arrests, so I'm not going to read into it anymore, but that would make a whole lot of sense. So who's saying this? Where are we getting this information from? It's actually a very, very good source. That's why I think that we have to pay big time attention to it. For almost 2 decades, for some nebulous reason, whether to do with his ties to foreign intelligence, his billions of dollars, or his social connections, Epstein, whose alleged sexual sickness and horrific assaults on women without means or ability to protect themselves is well known in his circle, remained untouchable. And guys, once again, James Patterson, who wrote Filthy Rich with a couple of investigative reporters, he was on Fox. We're going to do a whole breakdown video on that. We're going to be filled to the brim with videos today in between me taking care of my sister's kids, guys. It should also be noted the reason I attach credibility to the above is based on who wrote it. Vicki Ward. She has an extensive history of digging into Epstein and wrote one of the earliest profiles on him back in 2003, as she noted in today's article. She talked about how she spent so much time with Vanity Fair, but check it out. You can follow her on Twitter, and here it is right here. I tried to warn you about sleazy billionaire Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. So I encourage people to go check her out. She's not only an investigative reporter, she's a New York Times bestseller. She is all over this Epstein case as of now again. And she tried to write this back in 2003. And her latest book is Kushner, Inc., So that's very interesting to me as well. I'd like to read Kushner Inc., to be honest with you, because we've been very critical of Kushner and his connections in the past. So now with Epstein having more gravitas towards the fact that he was indeed intelligence and evidence than ever, Vicki Ward, a very credible source. And in light that goes to the Trump administration, also would have had to have known. And now they bring in A.G. Barr, who doesn't recuse himself. I'm hoping this administration is the real deal, because we have to find out whether Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, his right-hand woman or whatever, if she's going to turn on him. Is she cooperating with the FBI? Now, we're going to do a complete other video on who these employees 1, 2, and 3 are. I would be surprised if one of them was already Maxwell. But the biggest thing to take away from Maxwell, other than she seemed to be his number one madam by all of the allegations out there, is that her father was Israel's super spy, or Israel's super spy. The life and murder of a media mogul. Now, this is still kept hush-hush in the United States because, again, he was so heavily invested in the media. So you have to really go to foreign press for them to even acknowledge that Maxwell himself was an Israeli operative. By the way, it's Sir Robert Maxwell. You see how the Anglo-American Israeli establishment all works together in intelligence? And this is from 2017, about 2 years ago. And they were talking about how his files are getting more and more classified by the minute. By the way, he was found murdered. There's a lot of questions about that. But for instance, here you go. This is, mainstream Australian press here. Sons speak out about fraudster dad's death for the first time in 27 years. All right. And more interestingly than that, and obviously, they don't hide the fact he's Mossad here. Look, before the accident, Mr. Maxwell, who escaped Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia in his youth, had been accused of being a longtime agent for Mossad, Israel's national intelligence agency. So again, before the accident that took his life, I believe he was drowned, he was being accused of these things, and it's pretty well documented that, of course, he was a spy for Israel, a media mogul, and now his daughter working hand in hand with Jeffrey Epstein, who we have more evidence than ever was indeed an intelligence asset of some sort. And that's why Acosta had to back off. Even more interestingly is that Alan Dershowitz, in his testimony during a civil trial, being asked about Maxwell and his daughter and Epstein's connection and how he met them, this is what he had to say about it. And again, I don't trust Dershowitz, but I don't think he would perjure himself to this level. I'm not saying this is the first time he met Epstein or when. I think he's obviously lying about the dates with Maria Farmer's testimony, but we shall see. But I want to point out that Dershowitz talks about her father in this. I wrote an article about her father's death years ago, and I don't remember if I met her independently. I do remember meeting her through her. I remember that the Lady Rothschild asked me to meet Jeffrey Epstein, and when Jeffrey Epstein came to meet me, he was with Ghislaine Maxwell. So let's repeat that for a second. When he was introduced to Maxwell and Epstein supposedly for the first time, it was through Lady Rothschild. Thank you for the super chat, Russell Pierce. It's much, much appreciated. So once again, we have these intelligence ties. It would make a lot of sense that this is where he got his money, why they were operating out of the Virgin Islands, why there are now allegations that he actually helped fund and create the Clinton Initiative with Bill Clinton. Now, in that piece, by the way, with Patterson that we're going to go over, they go to a CNN piece where they try to defend Bill Clinton's 26 plus times on the flight log, saying, well, those flight logs are deceptive because every trip was about 6 or 7 times on the plane. But what I'm telling you now, and you know what, we'll go to it in the Dershowitz testimony. I'll search it out right now. Let's see. So there were a lot more logs that we still have no idea about. Okay, let's make that clear. So even though we know about those 26, Dave Rogers was just one of the pilots, okay? What we have here is only a fraction of the flights where Dave Rogers was one of the pilots. Let me repeat that. So it was only one pilot and a fraction of those flights. Can you help us get flight logs from Larry Vasaki, Larry Morrison, any of the flight logs from the helicopters, etc.? So there seems to be more than one helicopter, and there's talks of 2 private jets now in this new indictment. We read the entire indictment. This guy had a lot of aircraft. He had a lot of different pilots, and there are a lot of different logs, and we saw a fraction of them. And of course, Dershowitz said, I would love to. It would all show that I wasn't on the plane. And again, these are the sexual abuse allegations in civil court against Dershowitz that he is trying to defend himself against. But through the lawyer, we find out the names of some of the other pilots and where we might find more of these flight logs. So again, I'm going to wrap this one up, guys. We're going to be doing a big update on Epstein from the new accuser that's just come out. And I don't want to disparage any victims, but I got to say, it's going to be tough with a lot of new information coming through. We're already getting a ton of new information. Is Maxwell going to flip? A new accuser, Acosta, saying that he was intelligence, and then that's why he was actually put on the team afterwards. So we're going to be going over all that, much more. Tomorrow is the bail hearing, and we're hoping that he's going to have to stay in prison as he awaits this trial. Mark Kutz, thank you so much. Look into Bill Barr's father. Yes, listen, I know. You know what? I'm going to talk about that right now. That's also going to be one of the pieces. So supposedly, when he got this job as a professor and didn't even have a college degree, it's been said, there's a lot of evidence out there, and it may be 100% true. I know it's circulating. I got to put it on there. It'll probably be in my update video, that A.G. Barr's dad was actually the person that hired him. And we already know that, for instance, Comey's daughter is one of the federal prosecutors in this case. So I'm hoping that the fix is not in. So yes, at the Dalton School. In fact, although I didn't mention that in my my biography on where Jeffrey Epstein came from, I did one on We Are Change about 2 years ago. I posted it over on my Twitter. So if you're not following me on Twitter, go check that out. And I mentioned, of course, the Dalton School, his first big clients, where he was supposedly getting money from. A lot of that came from Filthy Rich, which is the Patterson novel that nobody talks about. And that's why we're also going to break down that Patterson video. Guys, if you are not subscribed and you like this material, you like deep dives, please hit that subscribe button right now. Join the Burmis Brigade. Again, we're doing interviews here. We're going into the documents. We're talking a lot of Epstein, but we're going to try to go beyond that into some facial recognition, Big Brother, ACR stuff today, and beyond. We're trying to do a Nexium update. Very, very busy, but I do want to say thank you to everybody that has given to my GoFundMe. 23 days in, either 7 or 8 days left on that GoFundMe, and then we're going to start again, but we're 2/3 of the way there and 2/3 of the way to the $5,000 goal. That's going to put me 30 to 50 videos a week for you guys, doing it 7 days a week about subjects that matter. So guys, stay tuned. We're going to be back with a lot more info later, and I will see you on the flip side.